Congratulations on making your very first computed property. We're going to be making a lot more computed properties throughout the course since this is such an integral feature to Vue, so don't worry too much if you found it a little bit confusing. We're going to see it many more times throughout the rest of the course. The next feature we're going to see is something called a class binding, and this is very powerful. It makes it very easy to make very powerful and exciting user experiences that are going to be highly dynamic. Let's go ahead and see how this works. We're going to jump up here and add a new feature. Before we do, I'm going to revert this to use numbers. We're going to render all of the numbers. The next thing we're going to do is add some conditional styling. I'm going to render different colors depending on the number. If it's an even number, we're going to make it blue, and if it's an odd number, we're going to make it red. To achieve this, we're going to first add some styling. So what I'm going to do is head over to index.html and add some very basic styling inside of a style tag. We're just going to have two very basic styles, blue and red. And as you would expect, blue is going to apply a color of blue, and red is going to apply a color of red. Let's just go ahead and add those styles. The next thing we're going to do is find some way to dynamically update the class. Let's go ahead and see how that might work. What we're going to do, of course, is use a class, and this is just going to, for example, give it red. That's going to make it red, and this is going to make it blue. And we're going to need some way to make this a bit more dynamic. What we're going to see is something called a class binding, which is a subset of something called an attribute binding. And the way this works is this. We're going to use another directive called vbind, and we're going to bind to the class. And what this is going to do is let us execute a JavaScript expression inside of this class. And we can do any sort of JavaScript expression we like. So what we're going to do is a conditional check. If it's even, we're going to return a class of blue, and if it's odd, we're going to return a class of red. Let's go ahead and give that a try. We're going to use our isEven function and pass in our number. And if this is going to return true, we're just going to return, let's say, blue. Otherwise, we're going to return red. Again, this is just going to be any JavaScript expression at all, and it's going to work just fine. Let's save it off and see what happens. And everything is broken. It looks like we've made a mistake somewhere along the line. Let's try and figure out what we've done wrong. If we open up our console, we might be able to get a hint. If we jump inside of there, we're going to get an error. And if I scroll up, it's going to say something, hopefully giving us a hint. We do have an error of some sort inside of our expression. Let's see if we can figure it out. I see. This is supposed to be a ternary operator. If we save this one off, it's now going to work correctly. And we can see we're doing exactly what we set out to accomplish. These classes are now red, and the even numbers are now blue. Exactly what we expected. This is working just fine, but we can make a small refactor to improve the maintainability of our code. What we're doing here is doing an inline expression. This is fine for something simple, but it does get very unmaintainable once people start to write very complex expressions inside of here. So what we're going to do is make sure we're very disciplined and move all of the complexity out of our template into a method. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to delete that one now and create a new method. I'm going to call this one getClass. And this is going to be a regular method. It's going to be available on the template. So let's go ahead and define that one now. We are going to pass in our number just so we know which number we're working with. Finally, we're going to create our new method down here. And this method is going to be called getClass. It's going to receive a number, and it's going to reuse that exact same logic. So let's just paste it in here. We're just going to return if this dot is even. Again, we can use this to access any of the variables from our data, computed, or methods, and that includes using a method inside of another method. If it is going to be even, we're going to return blue. Otherwise, we're going to return red. Let's save it off and give it a try. And that is still working exactly as expected. This might not seem like much, but this is actually a very high value refactor. Let's scroll back up and check out our template. We can see this is much more simple. Instead of having to read some kind of complex expression, we're able to just see a very simple method call, go and find out what this does. Another benefit of this is if you're going to use TypeScript in the future, you're going to be able to get full type definitions down here inside of your methods, and that's going to give you further type safety, which is definitely a benefit to some people, especially in very large applications. Now that we've seen that, we're going to jump into the next lecture and see some more features, including more ways to use vbind.